Okay, opening up our West Neck Water District meeting, and it's 2 p.m. So, hello, Joe.
I'm not sure which Joe you're talking to.
I doubled it.
We got a couple here.
Oh, I did. We're just going to run through the minutes, and then we'll get on to into your report, Mr. Picorni, okay?
Certainly.
Sure. Okay, so I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look through the minutes from April 28th. That was our last meeting. I did peruse them, and it looked good, so we'll take a second and run through it. I'll be right back. Did you have a chance to look through the minutes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bob comes back, we'll move on that.
I'm sorry, I know it's Shelter Island, but they're stealing clam pots. So that's my phone in the car.
You want to wait on the minutes then?
Fine.
Do you want to wait on approving the minutes?
No, I read them, yeah.
Oh, you did read them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm cool.
You're good with them?
Yeah.
So
a second or move.
you can move,
I can move.
and I'll second. Good. So, Mr. Picorni, we're gonna go right to you. And our agenda, as you saw, was outlined talking about the mains, the pump house, the status of the well,
Sure.
the health of the well. So if you want to, is there anything that you want to put up on the screen, or you want to just do a?
Let's talk about the mains. I don't think I need to put anything up.
Okay.
But that work is essentially done at this point. So all the water mains the old water mains have all been retired. And just last week, they finished retiring that water main that went through the tuck shop property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was a particularly problematic piece of pipe because it was subject to leaks quite frequently. So that's out of service now, it's gone. And the water system now, now we have real water mains and everybody has been connected up to the new water main. So, this phase of the work is done until we switch out the meters.
Right.
And I think I had told you that the meters are back ordered. Itron, the manufacturer of the little devices that sit on the meters that report remotely to our vehicles, is still way out there. I think they're talking the fall sometime for the delivery. And just so you know, we're going to change out yours. I'm going to change out Daring Harbor's at the same time. We're going to make the entire thing a wireless, not just wireless to our trucks, but it's going to be a wireless to the cellular network meter reading system. So we don't even have to come out there to read the meters when these are all installed.
Okay. All right.
And then eventually it should give you the opportunity, or the customers the opportunity, if they so desire, to go online or to go to, and I haven't even seen it yet, but there's some type of online web interface that a customer can go to a website and they can see what their water consumption is. I'm not sure if it's hour by hour, but it's like almost like a real-time view of their water consumption.
That's excellent, because we do have on this agenda, we do have discussion about a customer's water bill.
Okay.
But I will bring that up when you're completed.
Sure. So anyway, so that's where we're going. But the good news is that the water main work is done. I'm hoping what that's going to translate to I'm actually pretty sure that that's going to translate to is less emergency calls, less breaks, less digging up the road, and better water quality, more volume for people that are using the water system, less lower pressure problems. So, I mean, everything that comes along with having a real water system installed as opposed to those small diameter water mains that serve the community.
Right.
So that's all good.
Okay. Have you had any complaints about pressure?
Honestly, no, none that I know of.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of anything. I've actually gotten some, I forget who it was that I spoke to, but they said they had better pressure than they did originally, which is more of what I would expect.
Great.
Yeah. So that's it for that work. So the next thing on our radar is for the replacement of the wells and the renovation of the electric system in the pump house. So we've been working with the DEC. We kind of cleaned up all of the outstanding stuff with the DEC that was left over from, the old West Neck system, and Bob Holtzmacher is petitioning the DEC for new applications and whatnot.
Right.
So they've issued us what they call a consolidated permit, which is where they take all the wells and they put them on one permit. And it's usually, it's a pain in the neck to get them to do that, because there was some, I think they still had wells 1 and 2
Yes.
in the mix there. So we eliminated
Right.
that. And they just recently issued a consolidated permit. And we also expanded the limits of the district on their records to reflect what it was when we took over the system. So it was more that it was simply just kind of tracing the boundary lines. The boundary lines didn't go over to the golf course. They technically had to include the wells on the golf course. The district boundaries never included that. So now it includes that. So I'm hopeful that that's the last time we'll ever deal with the DEC for expanding the district, because any further expansion of the district should be into Suffolk County water territory and shouldn't require any changes to the district boundaries. But we'll see. I mean, there may be onesie twosies where we're going to have to do it, but I'm hopeful that we won't.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
It's a pain in the neck.
No, I mean, with regards to, we won't be expanding the district, but
Right.
we will be expanding into your territory. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so everything on the island that's not served by a current water district that has boundaries is considered Suffolk County Water Authority territory.
Okay.
And so, and that's great because those extensions don't require any red tape. In other words, we're just laying water mains in areas that are our territory, and we kind of do that as of right. We don't have to petition the DEC to do it. It's already our territory, and so we're just serving our customers that are in that area. And that's the way it should be in the future when we expand this system to other areas. So there'll still be a West Neck Water District boundary, but it's going to be confined to what's existing. And then any additional expansion is the Suffolk County Water Authority. Honestly, it doesn't really mean an awful lot. It's just the way we, the way we have to deal with the DEC and the way we operate, on the mainland.
Well, contractually, does that mean that the existing contract we have with you only pertains to the district and not to extensions?
I would say so, yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. I mean, maybe not with this conversation, but at some conversation, I'd like to find out what does that mean financially?
Well, that's a great question, and that goes into the whole discussion of the system expansion. Joe might have some thoughts about that also. We've been talking a little bit about that. That still needs to be discussed and decided upon how that's going to work and what that's going to do to the rates of the people in the West Neck Water District. I realize that those questions are out there. I don't know that we're prepared. Yeah, I don't know that we're prepared to address them at the moment. I think that whatever we do is going to be beneficial to the West Neck Water District people. I think that that's probably clear because they're going to be sharing the resource with other people. And so as a result, the other people should be paying something towards that. So again, I think that still needs to be discussed. I don't know if Joe, you want to weigh in on it at all, or?
Sure. Yeah, I think one major important distinction with regard to Lisa's questions on the contract is that the West Neck water system, the actual infrastructure, is owned by the town, whereas the expansion, anything outside of that footprint, would be owned by Suffolk County Water Authority. And so our agreement that we have is relative to operating the town's own system. And so that's a distinct difference, that the contract doesn't need to be relevant to the expansion because it's not our infrastructure.
Right.
And
Right.
Beyond that, in terms of the financial agreement, that's, I think, the role of town board and sort of the home rule aspect of this, to make sure that the financial arrangement for new customers versus existing customers is equitable. And that's, I think, an important role for the West Neck Water Board to play as this develops. And Suffolk County Water Authority in that role is sort of a baseline. They come to us with the cost of the expansion, with the cost to deliver that water, and then we have the flexibility as a township to say, do we want to charge more? Do we want to charge the same as the existing West Neck customers? How do we want to structure those finances so that this works for everyone? And as Joe mentioned, the baseline benefit to existing West Neck water customers is that by adding more customers to your existing base, you're generating more fees towards your debt payback for the capital improvements. You get that both through the annual fee of new customers, and you get that also through your consumption rate. So the rate that you as an existing customer pay now includes not only the cost that Suffolk Water charges the town for operating the system, but then some for the capital cost payback, all of this new equipment that's been installed. So if any new customer in the future was to pay the same rate, let's just say you have 5 new customers, potentially the town buildings. If they pay the same rate for every 1,000 gallons of water that they use, as you do for every 1,000 gallons of water that you use, they would be generating funds towards your capital improvement program.
Yeah, we did talk about this. I have a lot of questions about that. And I think that those questions are for another time in a discussion between the board here and the town board, because I got lots of questions about that.
Yeah. And Lisa, I think that those discussions probably should wait until specifically this issue with the grant that we're looking for the expansion of the system. That kind of gets ironed out. We find out whether you're going to get a grant, whether the project's going to go forward, what the costs are going to be. Right now we're working with kind of estimates, and we're working with somewhat conceptual ideas. But when more of this becomes clear, I think we'd be in a better position to talk turkey and what the actual numbers would be.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot that needs to be discussed.
No question about it. Yep. So anyway, so with respect to the pump station and the wells, so, the pump station, the wells are performing fine right now. We're running primarily off of well 5 and 6, which are on the golf course. They get rotated on a daily basis so that they get a little time to relax. They're backed up by well 4 across the street, so that if the demand on the system is too much for one of those wells to provide water, then the well across the street, number 4, picks up the extra slack. The system looks good. I mean, it's cycling on a regular basis. The pressure band is pretty narrow, so it seems to be like it's working fairly well. So, for the time, we kind of look at this system like right now we're in limbo, because we're working with these very small wells with these antiquated controls that are in the pump house. But our intention is that once we get the permits, right? So the next thing is to replace those wells on the golf course with newer, larger capacity wells. Okay. And as part of that project, we're going to be upgrading the electric system. And what that's going to allow us to do when it's all said and done is we'll be able to run both wells on the golf course simultaneously when we get into those peak demand situations. But it will give us quite a bit of additional capacity. The wells, instead of being 25 gallons or 22 gallon a minute wells, they'll be 100 gallon a minute wells. And so the system overall will have a great deal of extra capacity in it, just by this replacement of the wells. And again, by renovating the electric system, we're going to have more flexibility in the way the system is operated. So that can't happen soon enough, because we're still working kind of like with a hybrid remote control that requires some manual intervention type system. The operator has to go out there every day and physically throw a switch to alternate the wells from 5 and 6. When it's all said and done, we'll just push a button in Bayshore and we can rotate the wells from there. So that's where we want to get to, but we just have to go through this process right now. So the grant, the $500,000 grant from DASNY, is still in progress. Things look pretty good. I had sent them probably about a month ago a response to their questions. They had some questions in order to make the grant official. I did get another question last week from them about the plot plan and where the wells were going to be located. I answered that, and the person I'm dealing with over there seemed to be satisfied with what I gave them. So I have seen nothing that is precluding the grant money from coming. So far, so good. It's $500,000, and it looks like it's it's on track.
And that will be applicable to the new well construction.
That's what's going to go. Yeah, it's going to reduce the cost. Well, it's going to reduce the overall capital cost for the West Neck water system. So if it was 1.7, it's going to become 1.2. And then what we'll do is we're going to readjust the surcharge once we get the check and we're made whole for the work that we're going to do. So that will discount your surcharge. So that's going to be the first reduction in the surcharge you should see. And I'm hopeful that that will happen, maybe around our anniversary date of next year, because what we're waiting for right now is we're waiting for the permits for the replacement wells for 5 and 6. So they'll be called 5A and 6A. The permit application is in with the DEC, and we will start pestering the DEC very soon, after giving them some time to digest what we sent them. But we're going to start pestering them to give us the permits so that we can do that work over the winter. We want to drill those wells over the winter.
Okay.
We'll do that work, and we'll do the electric work associated with it too over the winter.
Is the work still going to entail digging essentially a deeper well at the existing well site?
I can't necessarily speak to the depth. I mean, you don't really have a lot of options for the depth. If you go too deep, I think you're going to wind up in salt water. So you have to be very careful where the well set. So they're going to be similar in depth, plus or minus 10 feet maybe. But they're going to be larger diameter wells with larger screens that are capable of taking more water out of the aquifer. And they'll be sufficiently larger, so that it should be relatively easy to get water out of the aquifer. There should be very little drawdown, as we call it, when the pumps go on. So that's really the next big step. That's the next big project. And once all that work is done, I can submit invoices to DASNY, and they look pretty flexible in the way they pay this stuff. We've been dealing with a lot of different grant agencies, and so far DASNY, this agency that Fred Thiel has gotten us involved with for this grant, they look like a pretty accommodating organization to work with so far. So I'm hopeful that this is all going to work out good.
Great.
So that's the status. We have the pump house still, there's still work to do there as far as small piping and, getting this thing to kind of look like a water authority pump station. And we kind of nibbling away at it. We don't want to damage anything. Everything is kind of held together. It needs to be carefully worked on, and that's what we're doing. And we've been able to continue service, and I don't think we've really had a service disruption as a result of anything really failing. So that's the good news. And it's only better than it was when we took it over. I mean, it's much better. You know, the metering is all better now. So, the other thing that I'm concerned about, and it doesn't necessarily involve any money on the part of the town or the district, but the hydro tanks that are in there, one of them is leaking and one of them we had to shut down because it was leaking. And there's one more of the same vintage of that one that was leaking. And there's another one that's newer, but in general, there's very little storage in this system. So that's something that we have to work on. But that also may be something that and again, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but that may be something that we address with this H.M. Woods proposal also, which is involved with the expansion of the system.
Can you tell me how, when you look at the historical draw, how are we doing with regards to last year? Are we drawing the same amount? Are we pumping the same amount? Are we on par with last year? Is there any way of knowing that?
I think we're probably, I have to apologize. I haven't looked at it over the past few months, but I can tell you the way the rest of the system is. June was a pretty big month. So you probably used a little bit more than last year for June. July is turning out to be a little less. Did you guys get rain out there last night? Did it rain much?
No.
No, huh? So that's what's happening. We're seeing a lot of, this is all a function of rain. And I know you guys don't irrigate, but I still think that rain will certainly suppress water usage because I'm sure people are still using hoses and whatnot to irrigate their plants and whatnot. But we're seeing that July is a little down overall in our system because we have gotten some rain in July. It's been sporadic and it's been heavy at times, but it has, we haven't had these long hot stretches like last year. It's nowhere near as hot as it was last year this summer on Long Island, at least. In other parts of the tri-state area, it's been pretty hot. But as much as today is a very hot day, it's still been relatively moderate as far as the temperatures go.
Yeah, we're about on par with historical rainfall.
Yeah,
a little bit under, and we're still in a guarded drought situation.
Yep.
But what little we got has sort of helped level it out a bit.
Yep, agreed. So that's basically the news on the system at this point.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I should bring up one thing, and I want to make sure everybody is concerned about emerging contaminants. And the EPA is proposing to change the drinking water standard for PFOA and PFOS. The New York State standard right now is 10 parts per trillion. The EPA is proposing to bring it down to 4. Well number 6 has some low levels of detection of PFOS. I think it's like in the 4.5 range, somewhere there, around a little less than half the drinking water standard. So if the EPA does pass or, promulgate the standard, New York State's going to follow and adopt it. We'll probably be putting filtration on at least one of the wells as a result of that.
That has historically been a well where detection has existed.
It has some detections. I think it was kind of mixed up between whether it was the Teflon tape that was used on some of the sample pipes or whatnot. But at this point, we've got that all straight, and now we are seeing some low levels in that one well. Again, it's below the New York State drinking water standard, which is currently 10. So it's all, it's a viable well. It's not violating the standard of any kind. But like I said, if the EPA does make this move, it will mean that we're going to probably install some treatment.
Which is really beneficial for everybody.
Well, I mean, if it's, this is the water authority's policy. If we've got a well that is impacted and is in danger of going over the drinking water standard, we're going to put a filter on it.
Right. That's good.
And then again, I know you probably know this, but when we do that, it's not something that you're going to be paying the bill for. That's the water authority's bill.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Anybody have any questions for Joe before I'm going to go into this one of this accounts.
Yeah,
This bill.
one other thing too is that you may see, or you probably know already, that you didn't get a drinking water report this year, right? We were issuing individual drinking water reports for West Neck Water, but this is the first year that you've actually been completely part of the Suffolk County Water Authority for the entire year. So the West Neck Water data is now in the Water Authority's complete report. So if you want to see the water quality report for your system, you can go to www.scwa.com, scwa.com, and you can go in there and there's a map. You can click on West Neck and the drinking water quality parameters will come up on our system. So you're not going to get an individual drinking water report like you did before just for the West Neck system. It's now part of Suffolk County water system.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, that's good to know because,
Sure.
yeah.
No, good. Good news.
I'm okay. I had a call from a customer who had a bill, and this customer had a break in their house last winter. And my husband was the one who went and responded and turned her water off. And then she called in her plumber, and then I believe she contacted the Water Authority. But she sent me this bill that last November through May is $10,989. She said that she has been trying through the department, the finance department, or the billing department to get satisfaction. She has not received satisfaction. She doesn't understand this bill. This person is never here. I know because I see their property. And I advised her to have a plumber look at what could be potential leak sources. And she said she's done that. So it would be, I told her I would bring it up and we would get to the bottom of why she has this astronomical bill, especially because she's not even here.
Sure.
So I know that this may be a surprise and you're not prepared to speak to it right now.
Yeah.
But I would like to get some, assurance that we'll get to the bottom of this bill.
Well, yeah, if you give me if you want to just email, I don't know if you want to make them public, but if you want to just email me the customer's information,
I will.
I would be more than happy to look into it.
Okay.
You know, we do have a policy for wasted water, and we'll have to just take a look and see what the circumstances were. I think I know about this one. I remember there was a freeze up.
Yep.
And I'm not sure
Yes.
if it's related to that. But let me take a look at the details before I say anything at this point.
Okay. I will send you this probably Monday.
That's fine.
This information. I told her I would bring it up. I also had an inquiry from residents of Hilo Shores, and they are interested in coming on to the system. There's some potability issues with customers in that area. So I did speak with the town representatives that in this whole extension discussion, they would be, I think that they should be considered first and that there's quite a few customers there. The main already goes there. It wouldn't be a lot to extend the main into that area.
Sure.
So I told them that when the new wells were in place and we could provide water to other customers than those in the district, that we get back to them. So I'm just saying that
Okay.
those are the people who are sort of a priority.
Okay. That's fine with me. I mean, again, I've been working with Joe. Anytime there's a customer that is requesting a connection for one reason or another, we're trying to work together on that to make sure that we're, we don't want to tax the system. I'd prefer not to hook anybody up at this point to the system.
Mhm.
You know, but if there's somebody that had like a well failure or something like that, we might be able to make an exception or something for them. But at this point, I'd like to hold off on making any additional connections unless it's an emergency.
Right, well, that's what we've been telling people.
Yep.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions? No?
Lisa, that large bill you just mentioned, does the customer believe that bill was made in error, or is just looking for relief as a result of the known leak?
The customer doesn't understand the bill. They don't understand why they're being billed this amount when they're not here. And again, I did go over, the potential for leaks and like hose bibs, toilets, et cetera. Maybe they've got an automatic pool fill. And the customer said no, that they had a plumber in to assess all of their plumbing and there were no leaks. So.
Oh, but I thought you
It's just
mentioned
a
there was an
mystery.
event. I thought you mentioned there was a specific leak event that your husband responded to.
There was.
And
There
that-
was a specific event and the plumber came in to repair the leak. And then I know that the customer said Suffolk County Water was contacted. So her thought was that perhaps she was being billed by Suffolk County Water Authority for work that would have been done on her property related to this. And I couldn't answer to that. I said, I doesn't seem likely, but I don't know.
Yeah, we don't bill for responding to something.
That's right. I mean, I didn't think so.
Yeah, the bill is, in all likelihood, the bill is for the consumption associated with the leak. But again, let me take a look at it. Let's find out what the facts are.
And also, I mean, I don't think now, but I think at some point in the future, when you say customers are able to go online and look at their consumption on a real-time basis, something like this wouldn't necessarily happen. But until such time, it is a potential that a customer can really drive up a bill without.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys know, right? You've been in the water business for a long time, so I'm sure you've had customers that have had leaks and had very high bills for one reason or another. But that does happen.
Yeah. I think that the difference is that we would look at this quarterly. Every 3 months we would, and it's retroactive, of course, but we would be able to see every 3 months if there was a really high usage based on historical usage. It seems that this has been going on since November, which is alarming. So, and if there was a high usage, we would mitigate right away.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to take a look at the bills, but I'm hopeful that, the next quarter bill was back to normal because they fixed the leak, and that this is a carryover balance, from that high bill that she's talking about. But again, we're just speculating. Let me take a look and see what's going on with it before we.
Got it. Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda is the finance report, and I'm going to hand it off to Amber. She doesn't know that, but I am.
That's okay. I did see that we have the invoice, and so let me just get to the bottom. I opened up that spreadsheet.
This is my phone that's ringing. Is it?
I don't know, it's not mine. I can't turn the sound on.
Yeah, so I see that the consumption for the year was 4,331 100,000 gallons. I can't remember how many zeros to add to that.
Hundreds of cubic feet.
Okay, hundreds of cubic feet, which we had based it on a projected 2019 year pre-pandemic because of the increased usage of Shelter Island homes during the pandemic. So we had based what we were going to, our consumption to be on 4,089. So it was up 6% from 2019. So what Suffolk County Water Authority has billed is $100,452 at our rates. The Suffolk County Water Authority rates are just a little over 36,000. So we have a credit of $64,458. And the surcharge was the $91,662, which shows that what we owe to Suffolk County Water Authority is $27,204. when we had done our projections, we were anticipating 25,000. So we're pretty close, and that's
Wow.
money that we have in reserves.
Nice
Joe-
work. I didn't realize you were anticipating a delta.
Yes,
I thought
yes.
you were pretty good. I thought you were pretty good when you were within $27,000, but now you were within $2,000.
Yes.
So, not bad.
Yes, one thing I was wondering if the spreadsheet that you gave us did have contract numbers. And my analysis that we had cranked out was based on the actual property owner's name. So I was wondering if there was a report that I could get broken down by name instead, just because with the increased consumption, I was expecting that we would owe a little less than 25,000 instead of owing a little bit more. So I want to just kind of refine the spreadsheet, because if we're going to get the $500,000 reduction, which could, like, just back of the napkin, the surcharge may go from 91,000 down to 65,000.
Yeah, sounds
Going
right.
from 1.7 to 1.2 million. So we have this money in reserve, and we had 125,000, but I think we've been earning some decent interest on it this year.
Yeah, we currently have $144,194 in our class account that,
So I want to be able to just crank through the numbers a little bit to see whether or not the board wants to keep the rates the same this year, or because we have a little bit more money, to actually lower the rates and give the ratepayers a little bit of relief in anticipation of next year. We might be able to grant more relief with the 500,000. So that's why I was wondering if I could get more detailed. Like, I see the
Okay.
contract.
So you want me to give you a revised spreadsheet with names, in other words, instead of account numbers?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that'll give me, I can play with the data.
All right. I'll get you that.
But all in all, I mean, we are pretty close, 25
Yeah.
versus 27,000, so we
Yeah,
can
that's
go
great.
ahead and pay that bill.
okay. That kind of brings up another question, and that is, the district was very careful about looking at usage. So that if we saw a home at 70 West Neck Road that used X amount, 1,000 gallons per year, and then in the next year, that number jumped, going back to, just sort of oversight, we would then wonder what was happening at that parcel to make that increase happen. And it was good for a variety of reasons. Number one, it helped us identify perhaps illegal use of water, since we're so tight on conservation. And two, it did help us identify a possible leak on that property. So that was very good information to have. I don't know if Suffolk County Water Authority does any kind of analysis on certain properties to see if there's a large fluctuation.
So what we do is, I can address the leak. If there is a leak, think of what that shows up as. That shows up as just continuous steady consumption. Now, what happens with that is when we read the meters, we get a flag that says the house has a leak. And what we do is when we get that flag, and it's only right now when we read the meters, actually, I'm sorry, I'm thinking in terms of our new meters. Your existing meters do not provide that functionality. So I'm talking about the future. One day when we have new meters, we'll have leak detection. So the answer really is no. We're not doing anything like that to look at previous consumption and looking at current consumption to tell whether someone has a leak. We don't have the ability to do that.
Right, with these meters.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you could compare last year's consumption to this year's consumption and see whether somebody is out of whack. Whether maybe they added, 4 bedrooms to the house and now they're consuming a lot more water. We typically don't do that. That's not in my wheelhouse.
Right.
If that's something that you wanted to do, I might be able to do something where I could get you consumption data and maybe just send it to you and you can take a look at it if you want to do that analysis. Like I said,
I think
it's just not
that
something, normally with our regular metering system, we're watching for leaks and we're notifying homeowners when we see a leak. So if we get a leak flag, we'll send them a letter and tell them that they have a leak. I think we might even make a call But we do have a lot of customers that get leaks. With 400,000 customers, it's a lot of calls every month.
Right.
But with
It
the
would be
new system,
beneficial,
yeah.
Joe, if we could get that information. And
Yeah.
now I'm putting on my other hat, and that's Water Advisory Committee hat, which is that kind of information would be useful for the town in general to see where water consumption, how it fluctuates, to see where the most water consumption happens and some of the reason. I mean, I just think that that's based on the information that we're trying to gather in the town, that would be good to have. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Joe Fenora.
Fenora?
I'm not sure I understand the question. You think it would be helpful to have all of the individual account consumption data?
Well, not individual account consumption data, but historical anomalies. How they play out over time.
Well, for instance, every month we receive a pumpage report. So on a monthly basis, we get the data for how much, what the system did in terms of production, but it's not broken down, to an individual customer basis. I hear your point about in, previous times, somebody was going through the list of meter reads and saying, oh, hey, that, so-and-so never usually consumes that much water. That jumps out at me. So I see the personal touch there, but it sounds like you'll have that with the new meters. It's just
When the new meters go in, we'll know when there's a leak.
It's an automated way to do that for a system at scale. So that I think solves that particular problem. But if you think, Lisa, sharing those monthly reports, I received those, so I can forward those along to the Water Advisory Committee if they think that's helpful, or certainly if we wanted to schedule a particular agenda time, I could compile a bunch of them, for a broader discussion.
Yeah, I don't receive them. I'd like to see how they look.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think as a board, we might want to know that.
About that's not a problem. In fact, I'll just forward them to you monthly as they come in. They're the standard form that goes to the health department, and we actually fill them out internally for other similar systems, non-community systems, like at the Presbyterian Church and for town buildings and stuff. So
Okay.
No problem.
You guys have any?
People have been asking if they have wells. And the wells are not operable anymore. Like people who bought houses, and didn't know anything about a well until they had a problem. How would they go about finding out about West Neck Water, and is it regionally in an area? In other words, Deering Harbor has it, we have it. Outside of that area, is there something that they can do to speak to someone in Suffolk County and try to be part of it, or how does that work?
Not at this time, because right now we can
Like the end of they're this close and then West Neck Water is not there kind of question.
until, I think as Joe said, until we have a greater supply, we can't bring any new customers online. We need more water to do that. But when that happens, then I think that discussion can take place.
Okay.
Donna, we're receiving quite a few requests at Town Hall. Folks call fairly frequently. And what we've been doing internally is taking their information, jotting down some notes about their particular situation, trying to understand if this is an emergency type thing where they've had a well failure, or if this is a water quality issue that they're trying to seek relief from, or if it's just simply a preference that they don't want to be on a private well anymore. And then we're comparing their locations. And Joe and I have worked with a sort of a priority list on how we would approach this. The standard response is that we don't have the capacity at this time to add any new customers, but we're working on that. We have a plan for significantly more capacity, but we are trying to not govern here with with an iron wall that nobody can get in. If there's a real emergency, certainly if we can help make that connection, that's something that we would consider. But largely, we're just collecting a list of folks who are interested so that we could consider, how to make a strategy towards new neighborhoods or new directions. Like, Hilo is a great example of a community that's relatively high density and close by, and that might make financial sense to look at that area once we could. There are other customers, for instance, that are within the footprint of the system now that are not connected. That's another category of people who make the most sense for a more reasonable connection time. But it's really on a case-by-case basis at this time.
We actually have someone who's zooming in who has a situation, if she wants to talk about that. I'm putting you on the spot, Regina, but.
No, that's okay, Lisa. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, I've invested probably over $16,000 in water filtration systems. My family's had our house for 60 years on West Neck Road. The main goes right in front of my house. And for years, our water was terrific. It was a shallow well, but then I guess the state required digging a deeper well. And that's when the iron sulfur problems started. And believe me, it is an ongoing battle to keep this, keep all that at bay. The filtration has 3 different tanks. It requires service at least several times a year, if not at times monthly. The iron collects like in the shower heads. I have to call a plumber because the shower goes down to a trickle. And I've had the house rented off and on for the past few years, but I'm retired now. And although I live in California, my heart is in Shelter Island, and I want to spend a lot more time there, probably spring, summer, and fall. So it's really important for me to have good water and have easy water. I also have Ready Refresh for drinking water. So, it's expensive, and it probably is at least the same cost as the West Neck Water District. So I would like to connect just as soon as possible and would like to know what I have to do that. I think Lisa said my name is already on the list because I inquired about this a few years ago. But I wasn't there to do anything about it. So now I'm serious.
Is there a way of bringing Regina online? She's southernmost end tip of West Neck Water. There's Hull and Hilo Shores, and she's right across the street from that. So
yeah, I'm at 100 West Neck.
Well, I mean, Regina, I hear you, and I know exactly what you're going through, and I talk to customers all the time that want to get off of their private wells. So I totally get it. And I would say to you that, we're working on increasing the capacity of the system. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want to go through Joe or you want to go through our new service department, but we can get you basically on a list so that we know that once we have that extra capacity, we'll reach back out to you and we'll arrange to connect you.
I think Lisa mentioned that I was already on a list.
Well, Regina had made an application a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, what happens to the West Neck Water District applications. I don't know what happens to them anymore. If that's sort of done, they've gone away. I don't know that.
No, Mrs. Harlow, we have that on file. So I'm familiar with your need. And Joe, is it possible, just a sense of scale, how many months perhaps we're looking at before we'll see some improvement in capacity?
Well, like I was saying, I'm hoping that we're going to drill these wells over the winter and get the electrical equipment done this winter also. And if that's the case, then I would hope that by at least the beginning of the next season, spring, summer, we're going to have those wells online, and then we'll be able to make additional connections.
I think one of the reasons why I was hesitant in 2020 to go ahead with it was I had heard, actually just by the grapevine, but that there might be some pesticides or fungicides in the water. And I'd like to, because it comes from the golf course, that they have to, treat the grass. And that's understandable, but I'd like to know what filtration systems you have in place to, screen that out.
So there are no filtration systems on the wells right now. We're basically pumping the water out of the ground. The treatment that we're providing is to adjust the pH with soda ash so that it's not corrosive, so that it doesn't corrode your pipes and our pipes. And we're adding chlorine to the water. And in some cases, we're adding polyphosphate. I think it's just for well number 1, well number 4, because it has some traces of iron and manganese in it. So we're using polyphosphate, but we're not, there's no filtration on the wells. And to be quite honest with you, we're testing for more compounds than the West Neck Water District ever tested for. We're testing for 400 different compounds, and nothing exceeds a New York State standard or an MCL. So there's really no need for filtration on the wells right now until they change the standard for something. But right now, I mean, that's where we stand. The water quality is pretty good. I know it's a golf course, and I know you might look at it and say, oh, it's a golf course, but it's still a relatively low density populated area with a lot of open space, a lot of recharge, a lot of naturally recharging water to the wells, and the water quality is pretty good out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Regina, for sharing.
Sure.
And I think you have your answer there. You are at the top of the list.
Joe Tenora or what? Or who would I hear from?
Yeah, someone at the town, likely me. We'll be working our way, getting in touch with those folks who have requested service as soon as we can provide. And perhaps I'll make it my business, maybe as we near the year's end, just to preemptively reach out and give an update.
That would be terrific. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, well, I don't have anything else on the agenda. I mean, we did talk about the main extension, the local and 2 municipal buildings, but I think you've assured us that that conversation is in the future. But I would like to reiterate that we, the West Neck Water Board, be part of that conversation.
I'm not going to speak for Joe, but I know that in my limited discussions with Joe, both of us understand, and it's more important that Joe understands it, but we recognize the need to be equitable with all of this because you folks have built the system and paid for the system, and you're not going to just provide water to people willy-nilly and not make them pay their fair share or help to pay for what you've done. So with that in mind, I would certainly say, the deadline for the grant submission is August 11th now. They extended it, but the grant will be going in, and then hopefully we'll know about the grant application by the fall. They usually notify or make public the who got the awards in the fall. So as soon as we have that, we'll have some more clarity. And
You're talking about the grant for the extension?
Yep.
Okay.
And to be clear, those details, how we internally work out the finances, are not part of the grant application. So we're not making that arrangement and then submitting.
Right.
It's something for us to work out once we know the results of the grant funding, whether we've received the funding or not.
Yes, correct.
Did you have anything else you wanted to?
Nope.
No? Okay. Anybody have
so
any?
I have on my list of things to do. I'm going to get you, Lisa, you're going to send me the information on the customer with the high bill.
I am.
And Amber, I'm going to get you a revised spreadsheet with the names on it instead of the account numbers.
Thank you.
If you could CC me on that as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm cheered because the 2 things that I'm now looking forward to is one, the extension discussion, if and when you feel the time is right, and just what is covered in the existing contract. You had said that some may or may not. It would be a better idea to find out just where we do stand in that. The second is was a little surprised at the lack of information that had been flowing in and would be available on individual accounts. Now, perhaps had there been that steady flow and one of us, and I would volunteer for that, well, one of us would kind of on a quarterly or month, however it comes, basis, take a look historically how each customer is stacking up. Would we have done a service and saved that person their $10,000 bill?
Right.
Or would we, in a job that we've never really taken and really fallen down on, some sort of enforcement in realizing, who is really pumping up on irrigation and other things that are against the town code. So I think those are two really very positive things that come out of the meeting. And I will say, out of turn, since we've been assured the possibility of a more transparent administration coming up, that all things will be possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fourth musical comedy.
Well, I agree. I think that, when we were scrutinizing the accounts, there was a good deal of oversight and a good deal of, ability to mitigate and to sort of negotiate with people and say, okay, what are you doing with your water?
Just remember that, we're reading the meters quarterly. So unless somebody sees water bubbling up or knows that they have a leak, the way that you would know it would be, at the end of the quarter when you read it. And if you were scrutinizing the bills, you'd say, hey, Bob's water bill is 3 times what it normally is. Let's go take a look and see if there's a leak somewhere. But unfortunately, at that point, the water has already been pumped and lost. So you're still kind of after the fact doing it.
It is after the fact. And even finding water, even finding leaks, it takes months to bubble up, as you say.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it depends.
We've got impermeable surfaces. I had a leak in my property. It took a couple of months over the winter to find that. So that isn't always a good barometer of leaks either. But I think looking at quarterly billings, even if it's after the fact, it's still a very sort of good.
And again, with these new meters, the fact that they talk continuously back to the mothership, so to speak, I believe that if a leak is detected, it's not going to wait for an entire quarter before it reports the leak. I think it reports it kind of more actively so that if it goes on for a certain period of time, it says, hey, you've got a leak.
One other thing I would add about the leak situation moving forward that was a huge benefit is that the meters are currently located typically at the house or at the structure, and the private connection extends from the home to the street where the main is. So if there was a break in the private connection, it's leaking in an unmetered location, so to speak.
Right.
And so but also in the private portion of the system. So the West Neck water system is not responsible for the plumbing that takes you from the street to your house. With the installation of the new meters, they're relocated at that juncture between the water main and the private connection. So the individual will be able to now know if they in fact have a leak. Right. The downside is they're paying for that leak or they're being metered for it. But with the new detection ability, it should provide, from a conservation standpoint, it effectively eliminates that circumstance that we just described, where you need to wait, several quarters worth to either see the bubbling up or, in the case of the old meter arrangement, it could go on in perpetuity.
You would never know.
It would be no way to know where the water it was actually leaking because it wasn't captured by any meter. It could have been a leak in the private connection someplace between the house and the street, and nobody would be aware of it.
Right, and I think that, you know, this meter will help with conservation, but it will definitely put the onus on the homeowner to maybe in fact put new lines in because their lines are leaking. So it's gonna be an educational opportunity for us to say, before the meters go in, this is what's happening. You may see a rise in your bill, and it could be that rise is indicator of your service line from the house to the vault, if you will, and that's your responsibility. So I think that we really have to educate customers that that's coming.
Yes, from a conservation standpoint, we're about to be, as a system, as tight as we can be. New distribution, new metering, relocation of the metering. That's about the best you can possibly do in terms of eliminating waste.
Right.
Yeah, and when we have the new meters, I'll be in a much better position to do a lost and unaccounted water analysis on the system. Right now with your old meters, I really can't do it that easily. But with this new system, I'll be able to take a snapshot of the water consumption, and I'll know exactly how much water was used over a period. And then I can compare that to how much water was pumped out of the wells during that same period. And the difference would be the lost and unaccounted for water.
So right now, you don't do any kind of analysis between what is collected in sales and what is being pumped out from the pump house. You don't do that right now, because that's something we would look at too, in order to assess what percentage of the system was leaking.
Well, the main meter was just replaced, so we were unable to do that up until recently because the main meter was broken.
Right, but you'd have to collect the meter from all of the different pumps to do that.
Well, no, we'd have to compare the total pumpage from the wells, which we have now. We're collecting that accurately now. We have to, you know, we've got that new meter in there for the past few months, and we would compare that over a certain time to all the consumption that's been recorded on the meters.
Right.
So we could probably do it. I would prefer to do it with my meters because I know that I'm putting in brand new meters and that they're accurate. I don't, we're still using the old Westech meters. I don't really know an awful lot about them, but we could do it using the Westech data if we wanted to. Like let me take a look and see when these meters are coming in.
Okay.
I'll take a look and see. And, I do have somebody that does these analyses and maybe I can get them to do it using the existing meters. I'll take a look at that.
Okay, because if it's a quarter after the peak season, that might not be as worthy an undertaking, but if it's going to go into half a year, then we do want to, I think, maybe look at that.
I mean, look, I know about leaks because I can look and see how the system is cycling right now and see how much water is being pumped. And I don't see anything inordinate right now. When I say I know that my production control people are looking at it on a regular basis. And I have not heard of anything. What would happen is if there was a massive leak, the pumps would just run continuously. And right now, what they're doing is they're starting and they're stopping. In other words, the system is satisfied, the pump shut off, and then they come back on as usage goes on. And at night, I can see that whole trend stretches out because people use less water. So it all looks very normal right now. It's not emblematic of a system that has a leak in it, or a big leak at least.
All right. If anybody, do you have anything? Did you come up with any?
I have a question. And Joe, the flags that are like in my yard and many other people's yards, after the work has been done, are we allowed to take those away? Or I think it's a combination of they're showing where the water beats the rain, within meters.
Right.
And then I don't know what the other ones are. There's ones that's red and then there's one that's yellow and can I take it out or do I have to keep it there for life? I don't know.
No, you shouldn't have to keep them for life. I mean, I believe you can pull them. I don't think that there's any need, but let me check
Okay,
and make sure that there's no need for any of those flags to remain. But I mean, the work is essentially done. So
Okay,
I don't
that's
think
what I
there's any
thought.
need for it. I'll
Okay.
drop an email to Lisa and let her know.
Sure.
thanks.
And I will say, the work was well done. We had no disruption of service, so, it was a very healthy experience.
Yeah, no, roadwork construction is top notch. You did a
Yeah.
great job. Already?
Okay. Well, that concludes our meeting
Okay.
on time. Unless there's any questions from those in the Zoom audience.
No, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Regina.
Thank you, Regina.
All right, so we will
Okay.
end the meeting.
Okay.
I second.
All
Okay.
right. Good
Take
seeing
care.
you all. Have a good rest of the summer.
Very good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.